Now we'll move on to our next presenter, Mishra, to present on the topic Protective Masks, a Semiotic Discourse in Times of Pandemic.
Hello. Very warm welcome to everyone to the 8th Texila World Conference. It is an absolute pleasure for us to share our research with all of you on this particular day, which is providing us all with a multidimensional learning experience. The past 2 years have been really challenging, and yet it has taught us a lot of learning experience. We as humankind have learned a lot. One of the key takeaways probably is to bring this aspect of multidimensionality and multifunctionality. Our research, our presentation today is going to unfold our research and findings based on this very aspect. It talks about embracing the change during this pandemic, and it aims for the breakthrough innovation and creativity for a better future. Today, I, Dr. Kundlata Mishra, along with my colleague Ms. Shweta Rangnekar, would like to present on protective masks, a semiotic discourse in times of pandemic. So the pandemic has changed what we referred as a normal attire. In the past 2 years, while coping with the pandemic, one of the most significant changes that has been part of our wardrobe is the mask. Majority of us did not envision ourselves wearing or being asked to wear a face mask on a daily basis. From being part of a medical protective wear to being part of common man's necessity and essential, it has come a long way. So, what exactly are these protective masks? It is an essential part of personal protective equipment, PPEs, as what we commonly know them as. So, PPEs refer to protective clothing, helmets, gloves, face shields, goggles, respirators, or any other equipment designed to protect the wearer from injury or spread of infection or illness. Protective masks are pieces of kit or equipment worn on the head and face to provide protection to the wearer. They are usually worn for four primary uses: protection against dust and pollution, chemicals, or for supply of air like respirators and dust masks. So, yeah, it protects the face against flying objects as well and dangerous environments while allowing the vision. These protective masks have third utility where they help provide protection during warfare and protection against inclement weather as well. So these are the basic things that we see across. So this protective mask is a tool that is commonly utilized for the prevention of spread of diseases. That is what we see as the use right now. They're called by various names such as dental masks, isolation masks, laser masks, medical masks, procedure masks, or surgical masks. A mask that covers mouth and nose can be secured by ties, bands at the back of the head, or ear loops are called the face mask. Nowadays, face masks come in many different colors, sizes, and shapes and are manufactured by various brands. So, as a part of a fashion design process, whenever we think about designing or looking through what is the next trend, what is the future going to be, we tend to study the evolution, the history, how it has moved from the past to the present day. So, this particular picture that we've created here is a timeline that talks about what is the essential part of our accessory today, how was it designed, how has it come to what we know of in present. So to start off, I'll just take you through all these story and all this timeline, so it helps you with the whole process. Can't let it be on the same slide. I'll take a little time. So the first picture that you see, it talks about the 13th century. So one of the well-known Marco Polo was one of the travelers in the 13th century, and his travelogue quotes that when he was in China during the Yuan dynasty time, he came across the first written reference of mass. So there, the servants of the emperors, or probably now we refer as domestic helps, they were asked to wear these silk scarves to cover their nose and mouth. It was believed that their breath could also bring in or change the taste of the food, and the emperor did not want the taste to be altered. It was only later we identified there's no relation of breath and the change of taste in this particular manner, but back then they believed in it. So, this was the first instant a written note of a face mask. From there, during the bubonic plague in the 17th century, we came across these references of masks where they were shaped like a beak. So basically, this particular person called Charles de Lorme, who designed the protective wear for the royals during the European plague that was running across quite a lot of time. This physician, he catered to the medical needs of these Europeans, including King Louis XIII, Gaston d'Orleans, who was the son of Medici. And he provided this whole structure of a mask which was shaped like a beak. And in this particular beak, they would put this particular content of herbs. So these herbs would purify the air that they breathe. And it was said that because the this mask was long, the amount of time it takes for the bread to come down and a person inhales it, it gets purified. So these doctors could be protected from this. So this was another second instance where we hear about protective masks during a pandemic. From there, the first reference of a surgical mask or wearing a mask during surgery was seen in the 19th century. Uh, After that, in the early 20th century, it was seen that what we look at today's present day masks and all, during the pneumonic plague or the Manchurian plague, there was this doctor, Wu Lin Te, who had probably put down all the information and created this PPE kind of thing, which has probably led to the present day hazmat suit also that we see. We see the derivation of it from this particular aspect. Um, After that, again, during the 100 years ago, we've seen the Spanish flu, pneumonic, that was there. We've seen a lot of references of how masks were very popular. It was also seen during that particular point of time that world war was also going on, and especially in the western part of the America and all, they had put down these kind of doctrines that you have to wear these masks. So a lot of different varieties of mask were seen. You would have come across something like that this recently when the mask became very popular for all of us as well. So now when we're talking about the present day pandemic and we're talking about these masks and everything, how has our identity and how we perceive people got altered in this time of pandemic? And to understand this, we took a very niche case market or niche clientele as a subject. We took up the protective care workers in the process industries and the OEMs. OEMs are basically original equipment manufacturers. So we wanted to understand how probably in their working environment, wearing a mask would make a difference in their identity, in their perception, and in their work. So our research has been worked along on that particular aspect. So, when we talk about identity, fashion provides one of the most ready means through which individuals can make expressive visual statements about their identities. This is said by Bennett in his book Culture and Everyday Life, which was published in the year 2005. As we say, when we probably meet each other, the first thing that we notice about a person is what he or she is wearing. And from there, it strikes a conversation, it strikes our own judgmental behavior of probably analyzing and commenting maybe what that person would be, where or what background that person belongs to. So an identity gets generated. But now what happens when we are wearing and we are covering our face with protective mask? It takes time for us to even know that the person behind the mask is smiling or is angry or is frowning. So how does it affect the workplace is what we'll be looking through. So when we are talking about all these things and science and everything, the word that comes is semiotics. Semiotics is basically the study of fashion, study of science. And when we talk about study of fashion and signs and symbols and how what we wear will signify a person's specific social and cultural position in the society, can be derived from these signs if we study them. So there is a interesting model which is the fashion semiotic square, which talks about how fashion has a function, it has a symbol to it, it has a socialization factor, and it has a personal value. So if I have to give you an example of a protective mask, the primary function of fashion is to protect. When we talk about status and symbol and all, a person who's from an who wears an Adidas brand's mask would come down to be an athletic person or sports lover. When you talk about personal values, the way you mask, the way you maintain the hygiene, all of that comes across through it. So a small part of our clothing can give in so many different meanings. And this is what was also mentioned by Ferdinand de Saussure, who probably went down to say that science of the life, science sings in the society. And fashion is that language of sign. And it non verbally converses a lot of meanings about an individual and a group in totality. So, some more examples to talk about what semiotics of fashion means. This is an example. The picture over here is a reference from 2018 Golden Globe Awards. Back then, a lot of Me Too movement was there, where a lot of actresses came up and talked about casting couch and how they were subjected to a lot of sexual harassment through their way winning, I mean, making their place in that industry. So all the female award nominees went across to wear only black clothing. And this is a picture which signifies that whole aspect. So the black as a color stood for protest. Black as a color stood for solidarity. Black as a color also meant mourning and talking about how a lot of people were subjected to a lot of torture through the whole success to, I mean, their ladder to up to the success. So when we talk about semiotics of fashion, it comes with three aspects: the sign, what is the symbol meant as, what it refers to, and the people who are using it, what is the relevance of it for those people. So that is exactly what we go across defining through our case study as well. The whole idea here is that it creates a conveyance, it creates a communication of message. This message takes place between the development and the use of science to the interpreter as well. So the form, existence, and interpretation that it takes depends on a couple of factors. One is the society and the culture within this operates, or within which this is communicated. So that basically sums up what is semiotics of fashion. So we spoke about what are protective masks, we spoke about what is semiotics, and we'll be looking at how this whole discourse, how all of this has been very, very instrumental in understanding and communicating in these times of pandemic while we wear a protective mask. So when we're talking about these semiotics of fashion, it creates a global community. When we talk about global community, it means people of varied origins and national and international regions come together to form a community within and outside a designated physical space while catering to diverse norms and values. They communicate their perspectives, their vision about their beliefs and the world. So this is something which we talk about a global community. It's not restricted to a particular region or a nation or a physical space. This is a notion of belongingness, that you belong to a certain community. It's created by individuals and groups to integrate cultural norms and values that are acceptable to them in this everyday lives and meaningful ways. So, for example, when we are talking about this global community building, when we see a camouflage print, we know that belongs to an army uniform. So, be it here in India, be it somewhere in America or any other place over the world, camouflage will come across in different color schemes. This particular print will come across and you will be able to identify them. Globally, when we see someone wearing a white apron and with a stethoscope and all, we know they are coming from a medical or healthcare professional background. These are the doctors that we know. So, this is how fashion and clothing can create a community identity. This is how we'll be able to relate with some community together just by looking at what they wear. So, uniforms is what we look at when all of these people are wearing. And these uniforms, as the word suggests, that clothes unite people together. They are constructed to be the same repetitive format. And these work uniforms are presentable. They make they work with the formal environment in which you have to work. It becomes an essential factor as well with regards to the occupational safety and comfort at a lot of industrial workplaces. Workwear is a visible part of the corporate image as well. When we talk about these uniforms, they tend to generate an idea. When we are walking down the road and we're probably seeing someone wearing a khadi, we know that person belongs to the police background. If you're probably walking down the road and we see a particular person wearing a child wearing a formal shirt and a skirt, we know they're wearing a school uniform. We understand which school they belong to as well from that. So there's a lot of importance that comes in because the wearer is participating in a specific activity. We are able to judge that, we are able to identify that. And this helps to develop a sense of belongingness. It in turn generates an identity that is beyond the person. You see a sportsman wearing a particular nation's jersey, and you know it's the uniform, it's what they belong to. So that is how this whole global community building happens based on the uniforms. So, just for an example, from one of the workplaces that we identified for our study, this is the uniform. This is a process industry, and this is the uniform. So, this uniform brings in a lot of uniformity. Everybody working in that space feels connected. The hierarchy and all of it goes away, and at the same time, it performs the primary function of protection for these workers. So this is basically a class D level OSHA approved protective wear for these people, which is very much closer to our regular clothing. But at the same time, it has features that helps them protect themselves in this particular environment. So what were the objectives of the study and how we took it forward? This is what we're doing. By now, up till now, I was mainly giving you a background about how we started off. So our objective was first to identify the process industries and the OEMs in the northern and the western region of India and understand their acceptance and behavior and reaction to protective mask at workplace. Then we explored the impact the pandemic had on the protective wear segment and communication during this particular time. A survey was conducted for need assessment of design intervention at the process industries and OEMs with respect to new added piece in their protective wear, which is this face mask. To signify that, we designed and proposed masks with identity of the job profile and the work hazards of the worker, thus promoting personal safety practices at workplace. So the methodology, the research and design methodology that was followed was that process industries and OEMs were identified through snowball sampling, personal contacts, and internet. Firstly, to understand the acceptance, behavior, and reaction to protective masks during the pandemic as an addition to the uniform, and its scope of identity generation. Referring and reviewing of collected secondary data was also done. The sample selection, in order to gain an insight into the organization and functioning of the process industries and OEMs, people from different groups were involved with protective clothing, was selected by purposive sampling technique. The sample size was comprising of 5 industries um, with 50 respondents, and they were interviewed based on convenience sampling method. Some of the questions that were part of our questionnaire, just to give you an understanding, we understood their educational qualifications, the profile in the industry that they belong to, what was their work experience, what was their level of acceptance to these protective masks, what was the impact of protective mask on their job satisfaction and communication. Um, what is their take on the aesthetic appeal of protective mask, functionality and the ease of working, comfort, their perception of what protective masks are, and the overall motivation and acceptability for compliance of these masks. So the results and findings based on this, so all the data that was collected, it was analyzed, and it was understood that there's a need for comfort and fit, because a lot of times we've also seen through the whole pandemic how a lot of medical professional healthcare professionals talked about how their ears would pain wearing the mask, and there were impressions and everything that would come across. So comfort and fit was very important. The focus was on improving the look and comfort of the protective mask to encourage wearing compliance, because if it doesn't fit well, you remove it. So many times you're moving around, you see the mask is hanging down. So we saw the need to design something which is similar to what workers and supervisors would wear every time, and create a sense of equality, incorporate this identity part, and make it as a part of their industrial workwear. The mentioned results conclude for the objective working towards a global movement. So it talks about how the protective mask shouldn't lose their identity and in turn work as an extension to their workwear, but not be something different where they feel, oh, we don't know each other. Who are we? So that was what the results and findings were. So the first objective, we identify the process industries and OEMs. So when we're looking at this objective, the results and findings were through this that majority of the people that were working were in the 25 to 30 years age group. Um, In terms of their educational qualification, most of them had cleared their 10th standard, which is SSC as it's referred here in India, and quite a lot were either graduates or diploma holders. So this was the major category between 10th to graduate diploma holders kind of people that we had interviewed. In terms of the experience, most of these people were with less than 5 years experience and 5 to 10 years experience. We tended to probably interact a lot more with the junior level staff, rather than the supervisors, to understand, because that is the level where we see lesser compliance when it comes to safety. The second objective was to explore the impact of the pandemic. So, from the questions that we had asked, so one of the question was, how comfortable are you wearing these masks? So, a lot of people came, the common answer that we saw, not comfortable, but we have to wear it for the safety of family, not, and because it is mandatory, it's a rule, we have to wear it. How they felt about wearing the mask, they didn't like much, and they couldn't communicate. A lot of times when you're talking to someone, it's not clear, it's not perfectly understood what you're saying. So that was something that they felt. And then because of a mask, a lot of people who are similar looking, you would not even understand who's walking past you and what exactly they have said. So that is what needs to be understood. So I'll just the objectives I've already spoken for. Can we come to the designs? I'll just take you to the design aspect, so it comes to the more relevant. So again, this was the mean calculation based on Likert scale that we had calculated in terms of the compliance and all. So the priority that we saw was discomfort was something that was the topmost priority over here as a reason for non-compliance. So we created a framework where we understood that fashion and aesthetics is going to be the primary thing that blends the protection, the physiology, the comfort, and the efficiency, the functionality of it. So this was a model that we created, design model, design framework, to be able to implement our ideas. So let us see, I'll take you to the next slide and talk about what design ideas did we bring across. So these protective masks were designed on the framework that we've talked about. They had symbolic references of the job profile and potential work hazards. The masks were included as a combination of finishes. We had done a combination of finishes like antimicrobial, flame retardant, and moisture absorbency. So it gave them that comfort, and it was as an extension of their clothing itself. These icons helped in understanding. So we had created these different icons. So static electricity generation, droplets, flame, and static electricity. So all these things were probably planned out and created as an icons which were used in these masks. So this was the first dress that was developed, protective wear for them, and a suitable mask. If you can probably see here clearly, there are these references that come along, the signs that were used that talked about that when a wearer is wearing this mask, what are the potential hazards, what is it that they are going to work against, and they ensure that it is taken care of in the same manner. So this is a 3D rendered representation to give you all a better clarity. Here you can see the icons are there on the side of the mask as well. A very minimalistic approach, but at the same time, it's very important to understand how semiotics are giving this whole thing a very different thing. Making it more effective, making it more compliant, and making it more acceptable by the wearers. So this is another one. Again, every time it was ensured that the design that we have developed is aligned with the workwear that was designed for them at that particular point of time. The colors, the finishes, the symbolic icons, all of them were in tune with it. So this is how it would fit across on the wearer, giving it a lot of comfortable things. So denim with these washes and this knitted fabric that brings along the comfort for the wearer. So these are some other design variations based on the job profiles that were there, that they were created and made. So this is again a 100% cotton denim fabric which was used with a 9-ounce weight with these symbols. So you can see the impact that it has here. So this is the one more design. Again, keeping it aligned with the green lines, the fluorescent neon lines that have come across in the garment. The mask was designed in the same way. This is how it would look on a person. It's a 3D rendered representation of the design protective mask using the Clo 3D software. So this one was with the respirators as well. So we tried out another variety that comes along with the respirator style. Can we see the 3D representation of it on the next slide? So these are with the respirators, again, giving in a little better comfort of talking. So this is the last way design that we had developed with it, again, with respect to the colors. This was in a lighter weight denim, and it works very well with respect to the moisture absorbency and the finishes that were done on the garment as well as the mask. The 3D representation, again, the three stripes, concluding it with the design that was made for the garment. The last objective was here where we understood the impact of it with respect to the job profile, the hazards, and all. That was what we spoke about. This. So basically, it talks about spot the hazard, assess the risk, find a safer way every day. That is what SAFE stands for, and that is what our design masks signify as well. So, just to conclude, donning these protective masks as uniforms in the industry, the workers had a sense of enhanced feeling of safety and confidence. They could connect with the rest of the workers as promoter of safe industrial working practices. They could relate with their counterparts across the globe in similar industries as practitioners of right and appropriate working practices and aiming at preventing hazards in the industry. If we talk about it, fashion has played its major role in serving the industry by giving a design solution which gives all employees an identity, irrespective of the role of tasks assigned to them, creating a common group of people even outside the industry. The findings also reveal that experienced workers as well as less experienced workers have a great commitment towards compliance of protective masks and clothing while on field, as mentioned by one of the head of safety departments from the industry that we had catered to. So, if we had to quote, this is what his observation was that we just summed it up in the conclusion. And it has been a very important aspect when, especially in this pandemic, at their workplace. So, thank you so much. I hope all of you could probably get in a little insight into what we did as a research. Until then, stay safe and mask up.
Thank you so much, Mishra. That was an awesome presentation and so detailed explanation about the mask.
Thank you so much.
Now I request the participants to raise any queries in the QA session. We're getting a lot of appreciations from our participants.
Thank you so much for all the kindness. I'm honored to hear all the compliments. Thanks a lot to all the participants. It was wonderful presenting this to all of you.
And we have one more question for you.
Yes.
Has the wearing of face masks changed our social identity?
Yes, to a certain extent. When we talk about it, uh, a lot of times when we are interacting with people, we are not able to really judge, because the most important thing, I think, for me also personally, when we meet someone, was their smile. And that would make us to understand in terms of social belongingness or something, the warmth, the love, or probably how approachable a person is to talk to, or what is the body language when we are asking them. And with the mask, it probably takes that whole thing away. But it also became, so generally how it is said, necessity is the mother of invention. So this problem also gave rise to a lot of innovations in the masks. So getting mask where you could have digital messages being written on it, or a lot of play of fabrics and materials where you could see through it also as well. So it was looked as an opportunity as well, and it has changed what we probably interpreted people when we met them first also. I hope I've answered the question of the
Yes,
participant.
doctor. Yes, yes. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Abbas, you have any questions? We see raising your hand there.
Okay, there's another question I can read. Any prospect for a transparent mask to resolve this challenge? Yes, there are some transparent masks which have come as well, which people have made, but it is more of solving the idea of communicating the expression, but they have not probably dealt well with respect to the comfort. Because when we talk about transparent materials, these are PVCs and all, and they are not very breathable materials. So that has been a restrictive factor. So it works as communicating, solving one problem, but it doesn't give the wearer comfort. So that's why it has not become so popular. It's just been a fad, like a style statement, but not gone across to uh, gain popularity.
We have one more question.
Okay. Doctors are moving away from wearing white coats because of white coat hypertension. How do you explain that? So there's a lot that is that comes across with it. The thing is, the reason it started off with white lab coats, white coats, was that one. that color as it on itself, when we talk about color psychology, white stands for peace, and it creates a tranquility with it. But unfortunately, over the period of times, we have been seeing people wear white coats only, that this whole thing of hypertension has been associated, because we've created, oh, he's a medical professional, he's a healthcare professional, and he's going to probably charge. So the moment you walk into a hospital also with that smell and everything, you start being anxious already. So now the way things are perceived, the way probably we are reacting to a situation, it is getting modified. And that's how we are seeing things move away from the typical things that have been there always. There was a reason why it started off to be white, because you could understand hygiene, you could understand that color as a peaceful color. But now its definition is changing, because we've associated that as a symbol, as a semiotics of tension and something that is bad, disease, and all of it. So that's why now they're remodifying and wearing another colors and all.
We have one more question.
Do you
Do
think
you think, yeah,
do you think mask wearing will increase crime rates as people will be masked and blend in easily? Yes, that has happened. A lot of those cases have, and especially with the pandemic, I think a lot of jobs got affected. So people were in desperate need, and that is why it has also started off on that particular note where people would be masked and going across and creating crimes. That has happened. But probably let's hope that this is, we are nearing the end of the pandemic and we are moving away from this whole situation.
thank you so much for that brief, Mishra.
You're welcome.
It was an awesome presentation.
Thank you.